Welcome to Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss and discover the challenges and triumphs of those living with NLD, nonverbal learning disability, and other learning challenges such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and any other invisible learning differences that one may live with. And I like to interview individuals as well who live with various learning challenges. So if you know anybody, please point me their way, or if you are that individual, I would love to interview you on various topics. So please let me know. And I welcome you to this podcast. Before I go into that, I thought I would address that this election is going to be very important, and I am not telling you how to vote. I'm just encouraging you to vote. If you are 18 years old or older, I encourage you to vote and to do a lot of research so that you are informed on what you're voting on and that you are able to do do well with the voting process and be informed on it. And I am also an ambassador for the NVLD project, and then NVLD project is trying to get the NVLD back on the DSM, which is a manual for mental and learning disabilities, and it helps people get accommodations in school and in life by defining what the disability is and how it affects you in life, and by showing examples and evidence of it, and by giving a clear definition of it. So that's what the DSM is, and they're trying to get NVLD back in there. And in order to do that, they renamed NVLD to developmental visual spatial disorder. I always forget the D. My hope is that when they do that, they will list all the symptoms, because nonverbal wasn't a very good name for it either, but neither is developmental visual spatial disorder, because it's not just developmental and visual spatial. It's also the social, which nonverbal doesn't have either. So it's like, my name that I've kind of developed for it, which I'm not sure if it's very good either, is invisible learning spectrum disorder. But I don't know if that's very good either. So anyways, and this podcast is also supported by Patreon and Spotify and BetterHelp. So BetterHelp is a therapy company that does therapy online and remotely. I have not used BetterHelp, but I know they're very good, and I have been in therapy for more than 8 years. I think 8.5. I'm not doing it currently, but I was doing it last year, and it was very helpful for me when I was doing it online and remotely. It was very helpful for me. It was able to change a lot of things in my life and make my life better. So if you want a discount for BetterHelp, I'll include the link for that. And Patreon is a way for me to give you the episodes without any ads, like I'm doing right now. And I give you access to transcripts as well, and to the episodes without any ads. So if you want that, it's either $5 for the episode without any ads, or $10 with the transcript. I know that might seem like a lot of money, but I'm not really not doing it for the money. I'm trying to do it so I can donate the money to the NVLD project, or so I can do it to pay back my website subscription fee. So If you're willing to do that, please do. I will give the link for that as well in the description. And I also have podcast swag. I will get the link for that as well. T-shirts and water bottles and tote bags and other pretty cool stuff. So I will give the link for that as well. Good morning. Today's episode is going to be one that I've done before, but I haven't done it in a while. So I thought I would do it again with some new material and different articles and different twists to it. I hope that you are enjoying your Friday or maybe Saturday, depending on when you're listening to this. So let's jump in. Nonverbal Learning Disorder, or NLD, was first identified in the mid-20th century with neuropsychologist Byron Rourke playing a key role in defining it during the 1970s as a condition linked to deficits in right brain functioning, categorized by strong verbal skills, but difficulties with spatial reasoning, motor coordination, and social interpretation. NLD gained attention in education and neuropsychology, but remains absent from official diagnostic manual like the DSM. Research continues to explore its neurological and genetic underpinnings, while advocacy efforts focus on raising awareness, improving interventions, and clarifying its distinction from related conditions such as autism and ADHD. So that gives you kind of an intro to what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about the history of NLD. And so the first article is titled, "What is Nonverbal Learning Disability?" And usually I like to call it a learning challenge because I don't like the word disability because I don't feel disabled. I just feel different. Um, and a lot of times I'm going through a lot of challenges in my life. So that's how I came up with the term learning challenge or learning difference. So you might hear me use that instead of disability. Quote, "Nonverbal has become a synonym for non-language because syntax, the unique defining feature of language, initially emerges when verbs are first added to nouns to produce multi-word language constructions. Nonverbal learning disabilities, NVLD or learning challenge, are special learning disabilities, learning differences that affect learning in non-language domains and also affect cross-domain learning involving at least one nonverbal domain and the language domain. Most research to date has focused on the development of social and math other than calculation skills. In the social domain, nonverbal NVLDs are related to social cognition that affects the ability to develop a theory of mind which underlies understanding of others that and their perspectives, B, pragmatics, interpreting and using language to achieve social acts, and C, social skills for regulating social interaction with others. In the math domain, the disabilities may be related to quantitative and visual spatial aspects of mathematics knowledge of these NVLDs and those related to neurogenetic disorders such as Chern syndrome, Fragile X, and neurofibromatosis is increasing, but more research is needed. Close quote. So basically that article gives you it basically gives you a synopsis, that's a fancy word, a breakdown of what NLD is and why it's considered a special learning difference and
the fact that we have, if you have an LD or if you have something like that, like autism or ADHD or dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia, um, those are all invisible learning challenges. I could go on there probably or more. But what I'm trying to say is NLD, autism, and I think ADHD to some extent, we all have challenges with the non-verbal language, the body language, the facial expressions, the tone of voice, um, the basically that is the make up of 90 to 80% of a conversation. So we're missing a lot if we can't really comprehend or understand that. But I think we can do better by working on it in simple ways. Um, one way I work on it, this is a quick tip. Um, when I watch a TV show, if I've seen that episode before, I will mute it actually, and I will see if I can pick up on the body language and know what they're conveying without hearing any sound, which is kind of tricky. You could do this with a YouTube video. You don't have to do it with a TV show. Or you could do it with commercials on TV. And I would suggest doing it with somebody else in the room, not just by yourself, because then you can ask them, hey, can you help me with this exercise? I want to see if I can pick up on their body language, their tone of voice, and their facial expressions without having any audio. You're probably just going to have subtitles if those show up when it's still muted. And see how accurate you are, see how close you are. Make it kind of like a game, you know. Maybe there's a little reward you give yourself for how closer you get, like the game warmer and colder or hot and cold, whatever that was called when we were little. But that's a way you could do that. Anyways, um, the second article is titled The Dark Ages of NLD by Bill, who is a 68-year-old retired IT professional who was diagnosed with NLD at age 49. Um, by the way, if I might sound a little choppy or not very good in this recording, that's because I have a migraine. Yesterday was level 10. Right now it's a level 8, so I'm doing the best I can. So bear with me, please. My hands are really cold. I'm gonna try to get them warmer. So this is about Ben. Quote, I am a 68-year-old who was diagnosed with NLD at age of 49. The diagnosis mostly was a relief to me as it gave a coherence to a matrix of lifetime cognitive, physical, and social challenges. These challenges, when balanced against a desire to achieve richer social relationships and greater career accomplishments, made for a lifetime struggle with self-esteem. Only recently have I fully realized that I have achieved quite a lot in life despite my NLD disability. I think it is a I think it is great that today NLD is a recognized learning disability, and thus intervention can begin at an early age. As baby boomers and Gen Xers had to deal with our NLD totally on our own. This lack of support made my childhood awkward and ego deflating. Early on, I had the classic NLD embarrassments of not being able to tie my shoelaces at the usual age of 6 or so. Also, didn't ride a bike without training wheels to around age 9. I guess even as a kid, I somewhat compartmentalized these problems, rationalizing that I could play sports okay, so riding a bike was just one-off problem. But that only helped so much. It didn't help that my parents didn't sorry, it didn't help that my parents did get frustrated over my lack of mastery in these areas. Plus, since there was no blueprint for that, sorry, Um, Plus, since there was no blueprint for what were potential awkward experiences for kids with NLD, my parents signed me up for an after school woodworking class when I was 7 or 8. I hated the splinter club as I was both bored and upset by meager word crafting. Plus, there were older kids who made me feel uncomfortable. My ego clearly took a shell lacking there. Not exactly sure what that means. Oh, okay. So shell lacking, I actually looked it up. It means, in this case, it'd be defeat or beat decisively. They were shell lacked in the 1982 election. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay. So his ego took a beating. Okay. Trying to help you with the context and myself. Okay, so let's go on. Elementary school in the 1950s and 60s was the dark ages for learning difference kid. We were just quirky, lazy kids who had to be whipped into shape. Not having great executive functioning skills, my storage area under my flip top desk was often quite messy. My 5th grade teacher, in an effort to reform me, would occasionally flip open my desk top and make derisive remarks, possible even dumping stuff out if memory serves. Then one day she really tried to teach me a lesson. What follows is an expert from a memoir essay I wrote that describes this unforgivable lesson. I learned that I was the object of my classroom's derision via the voices gaining up on me. Look up, Bill. Wake up, spaceman. Look at the lights. It was then that I suffered a pants wedding worthy embarrassment. My sneakers had been tied together and hung ignominiously on the shiny fluorescent lights of our brand new classroom, spotlighting my deficiencies. The bully perpetrator of this act was bigger than me and older than me, so what could I do? Plus, she was my teacher. Miss K used this incident of the traveling kids to lecture me about my personal lack of competitive grade school focus. Standing in front of her desk, she began, Bill, I warned you that if you kept losing track of your personal things, there would be consequences. I'm sure that if I opened your desk, it would be completely overrun with trash. This is not kindergarten. It's 5th grade. You don't want to you don't want to be our disorganized genius forever. Hopefully, by tying up your sneakers up there, I've taught you a lesson. Okay, I'll try harder, I murmured. But really, I wished at that second, that I could be a wise ass and threaten to sick my parents on Miss K. I regret that I couldn't come by with the likes of, Miss K. My dad's a dentist and he is very, very handy with the drill. Close quote. My teacher clearly indulged in bullying behavior towards me, but luckily I wasn't bullied by classmates, but I was sometimes made fun of as a spacey, slopey, quirky, clumsy classmate. I was sometimes called spazzy by a chorus of my fellow 6th graders. Also, my feet protruded out so that my gait resembled a penguin's. I was derided for those for this with kids imitating my walk or just calling me penguin, etc. I didn't have enough social skills to counter these taunts, so I just sort of accepted these unwanted ribbings. Close quote. So that was about Ben. Wow. Um, Let me drink a little bit of water. That's definitely some hard bullying and teasing there for Ben from his teacher and from his classmates. That's not good. And being called spazzy, that's not good either. I mean, spazzy, let's see what that how the dictionary defines that just to give you contents. Define spazzy. Oh, it doesn't come up. Oh, that's because I'm using Google Drive. Let's just Google it. Spazzy is a casual term that can refer to clumsiness, otherness, or being overexcited. It can also be used to describe someone who is jumpy, has a lot of energy, or makes involuntary movements. The term originated as a derogatory term for people with disabilities. Spazzy may also refer to a band known for their bubblegum melodies and well shaky sounds. They released the album Dumb Is Forever in 2011. Huh, that's cool. The Spazzies. Okay. We're not talking about the band in this case, but we're talking about how it was being used for um, a derogatory term for Ben by his classmates. So, yes, we can be clumsy and we can make sudden movements, and we can also be overexcited or have a lot of energy. But I would say that is, even though that's true, that makes us who we are. And people with ADHD also are spazzy. So what I'm trying to say here is it's not just somebody with NLD that's spazzy. It's ADHD. I would say it's also autism and maybe even other areas than that. I'm just trying to make Ben not feel alone and that um, there can be some good to being spazzy, if you will. For me, when I did when I thought I was more clumsy and I was still discovering more about having NLD, I didn't really like to do sports or walk backwards or challenge myself very often. And so I was I limited myself a lot on what I could do. But then when I realized, I would say this goes back to mm, maybe 2021, um, or maybe 2020. Actually, no, probably 2021 or 2022 when we started skiing again. Reason why I'm bringing that up is because when we started skiing after the pandemic, I finally said to myself, I'm gonna have better ability and self belief in myself. My word for 2023 was better self talk, and more positive. And I just kept saying to myself, I can do this. I don't need to listen to um, the little words in my mind that may be made up. Well, they are absolutely made up of me thinking I can't do it and putting myself down and, not being able to do something just because you're clumsy or that you're more what's the word that you're more challenged than most people isn't very self-confident or very uplifting for you. So I was trying to reinforce that I am better and that I can do things and that I can do whatever I really set my mind to, which is true for anybody. Um, and that helped a lot with not just skiing, but with other things as well. I applied it to whenever I was trying to walk down a steep hill because before then I really didn't like walking down a hill or running down a hill. I felt like I was going to fall all the time. And yeah, I have fallen sometimes, but I would say I've fallen more up a hill than going down a hill when I've been running or walking. Yeah, I have fallen down a hill when I've been skiing, but that's a little different. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you you can make your life easier if you work on your challenges and if you are your own cheerleader and your own advocate, because you're not always going to find people in your life that are going to do that for you. So you have to do that for yourself. And um yeah. So that article about Ben, I'm sorry that he had that hard time with his teacher and with his classmates, but I think it probably made him who he is today and being able to be stronger and be more of an advocate for himself, hopefully. So the last article is titled Nonverbal Learning Disorder, neurological condition, written by Laura Payne, fact checked by the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica, last updated November 11th of 2024. Sorry, I needed some water. Maybe a little bit more. My throat. Okay. Nonverbal learning disability, or NLD, a neurological condition characterized by cognitive and occasionally social difficulties that affect areas other than verbal communication and that are encountered by individuals of average or above average intelligence. The condition typically materializes during childhood, but it can affect anyone of any age, including adults who may have been undiagnosed as children. NVLD can cause difficulties with visual spatial reasoning, motor coordination skills, problem solving, and comprehension of nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions, postures, and body language. Individu- Individuals with NLD may struggle with navigating physical environments, tying shoelaces, reading, writing, understanding mathematical concepts, organizing, multitasking, staying focused, and interpreting social interactions. NLD is not an official diagnosis in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM. The, the publication that details the diagnostic criteria for psychiatric disorders recognized by the American Psychiatric Association. Further, in the United States, students with NVLD are not eligible for accommodations under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. A similar situation exists in other countries. In order to get patients accommodations in education, clinicians often diagnose patients with disorders with overlapping symptoms such as autism, anxiety, and attention deficit slash hyperactivity disorder. While NVLD does have some similarities to these disorders, and some children may have one or more comorbidities, NVLD is a distinct condition. History. NVLD was first proposed by psychologist Doris Johnson and Helmer Michaelbust in their 1967 book, Learning Disabilities, Educational Principles and Practices. The condition began to receive attention from mainstream psychologists and educators in 1989 when neuropsychologist Byron Rourke published his groundbreaking book, Nonverbal Learning Disabilities, the Syndrome and the Model. The book showed that damage to the right hemisphere of the brain resulted in learning disabilities that affect spatial, visual, organizational skills, fine and gross motor skills, and social learning. The definition criteria and parameters for NVLD have changed over the years as understanding of this disorder has evolved. NVLD profile. Researchers and clinicians currently describe 5 areas in which individuals with NLD show weaknesses. While not every individual struggles in each area and severity varies by person, NVLD can be identified if an individual has difficulties with 3 of 5 areas. The 5 areas are as follows. Visual and spatial awareness, when weak, impacts an individual's ability to understand visual, spatial information about the physical environment as well as visual imagery. Individuals may be physically awkward and bump into um, people and things as they cannot determine their spatial relationship with other bodies and their surroundings. They also often have trouble when it comes to two-dimensional spatial relationships. For example, when asked to copy a geometric shape, a person might draw something disordered or entirely different because they do not accurately perceive the relationships between the lines that make up the shape. Interesting. Higher order comprehension, when weak, affects an individual's ability to identify the main idea, supporting ideas, and the relationship between these ideas in written and verbal communication. This can cause problems with reading comprehension, writing, and storytelling. Individuals may also have difficulties taking notes because they cannot differentiate, between pertinent and extraneous information, meaning important and not important information. This may cause them to write down too much information, incorrect information, or no information at all. Sorry. Social communication. When weak, challenges an individual's ability to pick up on social cues such as facial expressions and body language. This may cause them to behave inappropriately in certain situations because they are unaware of nuances in the interaction. It is also why effective individuals are often more comfortable with texting, video game chats, and online chatting, since these methods of communication do not involve nonverbal cues. Lastly, mathematical concepts, when weak, make it difficult for an individual to apply mathematical concepts to problems, while individuals with NVLD are generally able to do well in math through root learning. When they are young, they may struggle with more advanced problems that involve recognizing patterns and applying higher level concepts as they get older. They may also struggle to figure out a problem they were previously able to solve if the problem is presented in a different way. And lastly, executive functions, when weak, affect an individual's ability to plan and organize tasks and to figure out how to overcome problems and obstacles. For example, when given a task, individuals with NVLD often have trouble breaking the problem down into smaller steps. So basically, NVLD support, because NVLD is not an official diagnosis in the DSM, children and young adults with condition are not provided accommodations specific to their needs under IDA or IDEA, if they do not have another diagnosable disability. In 2013, Laura Lemmy, a former clinician psychologist, founded the NVLD Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting individuals with NLD, raising awareness of the condition, and advocating for a formal recognition of the diagnosis. Close quote. So basically, just a sec, let me turn my heater back on. I'm getting cold. All right, I'm back. So basically, with that article, it was going over a lot of things. It went over the main areas of NLD, defining what it is, saying why it's not in the DSM, saying the challenges with it not being recognized by IDA, and it being not making it harder to get accommodations and also get a diagnosis and basically have a full understanding of it and what you need. So, main areas: executive functioning, mathematical concepts, social communication, higher order comprehension, and visual spatial awareness is what they were talking about. And so, basically, I hope that this episode was helpful for you in giving you some history of NLD and how it relates to other learning challenges and how it was discovered and how it's defined and more information about it and comparing it to other learning differences. And I hope that you are able to share this with somebody who may have NLD or a friend who is neurodivergent. Maybe they can learn something from this, or maybe you learned something from this yourself if you're neurodivergent or neurotypical. Um, and I will talk to you guys next Friday. As always, I will put the links for the articles in the description. And I hope you got something out of today's episode. Thank you.
I hope that episode was well worth it for you to listen to and that you were able to take something away from it, even if you don't have a learning challenge, or if you do. I hope it was extra worthwhile for you so that you are able to learn something and maybe journal and jot down some few takeaways so that the next time you experience that challenge yourself, you're able to um, learn how to breathe through it more easily, or maybe not have a meltdown or a tantrum, or be able to take away more learning from it and not make the same mistake twice, and be able to also help somebody else go through that experience if you have a friend who has a learning difference and you are neurotypical. So I hope you will be able to have those some experiences in your life now that you have listened to this episode.